Good evening. The Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Board of Trustees is now convened in a committee of the whole meeting on this rainy, chilly Thursday night, and November 7th, 2019, 6 p.m. in the boardroom of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Instructional Support Center, located at 10300 Jones Road, Houston, Texas, for the purpose of reviewing that portion of the Monday, November 11th, 2019 regular board meeting agenda designated as action items, and to hear designated reports and recognitions and the meeting notice as required by Texas law. No action will be taken at this meeting. I want to welcome the members of our audience and our television viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As the Cypress-Fairbanks Board of Trustees, we're here to set goals, listen to reports, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on tonight's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on the notice. This meeting is open to all who wish to attend and hear the matters discussed. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary, and in that event, the board will meet in closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code. These proceedings are airing live on CFTV Channel 16 and CFTV online on the district website. They will also be rebroadcast throughout the month on Channel 16 and available as video on demand on the website. For the tape to adequately reflect the proceedings, I respectfully ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking and that cell phones are turned off or in silent mode. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening and for your interest in the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. I'd like to also recognize our Community Leadership Committee members who are in attendance tonight. We have Gilbert Sarabia. Where is Gilbert? And Gilbert also won the position 3 on election day, and we're glad to have you here tonight, Gilbert. Our recognitions, board comments, citizen participation, and discussion portion of the agenda will be presented at the regular board meeting on Monday, November 11, 2019. All right. At this time, we will proceed with the public comments, but I understand no one is signed up for our public comments. So we'll go to our reports section of the agenda. 5A, the Human Resources Department will provide an oral report on the 2018-2019 Board Monitoring System objectives. Dr. Deborah Stewart.
Thank you, Dr. Ogletree. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Henry and Associates. Tonight, Human Resources is excited to provide you an update on Human Capital Goal 3, Objective 1. Objective 1 is to implement a recruitment plan focused on recruiting a diverse leadership staff reflective of our student demographics. Sharita Franklin, Assistant Superintendent, will give the presentation, but prior to her beginning, we have many HR staff here, so if we could take a moment and I'll ask you to stand. Wonderful, wonderful HR team, please stand. And what are we saying right now in HR? Stand, stand, stand. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Sharita.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. As Dr. Stewart stated, our district's goal is to focus on recruiting a diverse leadership staff. I would like to start the presentation with a review of leadership staff, our leadership staff, which includes executives, principals, and teachers. Our initial data review will begin with the executive leadership team. Executive leadership at CFISD consists of our superintendent, associate, and assistant superintendents. In 2018-2019, 24% of our executive leadership identified as African American, 14% identified as Hispanic, and 62% identified as white. This chart shows a comparison of our executive leadership in 2018-2019 in comparison with our student population. This chart shows the ethnicity of our executive leadership hires over the last 3 years. As you can see, the majority of our hires happened in 2018-2019. On the campus in 2018-2019, 12% of our principals identified as African American, 12% identified as Hispanic, and 76% identified as white. This chart shows a snapshot of our 2018-2019 principals in comparison with our student population. This chart shows the race and ethnicity of our principal hires over the last 3 years. As you can see, the majority of our principal hires happened in 2017-2018. While our objective for Goal 3 focuses on district leadership, I would like to take a moment to share the demographics of our teachers, who are the pipeline for many of our leadership positions. In 2018-2019, 15% of our teachers identified as African American, 3% identified as Asian Pacific Islander, 16% identified as Hispanic, 1% identified in multiple racial categories, and 65% identified as white. This chart shows our 2018-2019 teachers in comparison with our student population. This chart shows the race and ethnicity of our teacher hires over the last 3 years. The data shows a slight increase in the representation of teachers who identify as African American and Hispanic. The initial employment journey with CFISD formally begins with our application for employment. In 2018-2019, our district received over 77,000 applications for employment. Of those, 25,000 applications were for teaching positions within our district. For our teacher applicants, our recruiting strategy includes universities within the states of Colorado, Florida, Kansas, Massachusetts, Michigan, Missouri, New York, Oregon, and across the state of Texas. These emblems depict our focused recruitment efforts for ethnically and racially diverse teachers, which include the University of Houston, Texas Southern University, Houston Baptist University, the University of Texas at Brownsville, Edinburgh, El Paso, Rio Grande Valley, and San Antonio, the Oregon Professional Education Fair, Prairie View A&M University, and the Texas Alliance of Black Educators. A part of our recruitment strategy is to recruit teachers who hold alternative certifications. Human resources recruiters serve on the advisory boards for a few of the major alternative certification programs, to include ACT Houston, Texas Teachers, Region 4, Lone Star College, and the Workforce Solutions Group. Serving on university advisory boards allows our recruiters the opportunity to provide input into the teacher preparation programs based on the needs of our district. Another major recruiting effort for all positions is our district-wide career fair. The career fair provides an opportunity for all campuses and departments to meet over 1,000 applicants interested in working in our district. Another way that our district attracts qualified candidates is with our student-teacher partnerships. CFISD provides a hands-on, yet guided learning opportunity for education students through our student-teacher placements. In 2018-2019, we had 247 student teachers on our campuses. In CFISD, we love our substitutes. Substitute employees not only provide education continuity, their presence provides an opportunity for a campus principal to identify potential hire for the district. In August of 2018, Human Resources hosted an event where we recognized our substitutes for their continued commitment to our district. Opportunity is here at CFISD. We recognize that employee development is essential to retaining our top talent. One aspect of our instructional leadership development is offered through our leadership academies, supported by school leadership. Our leadership academies develop high-performing teacher leaders, assistant and associate principals, directors of instructions, and newly hired principals. While there is shared accountability amongst all departments and campuses for the human capital goal, CFISD Human Resources has the primary responsibility for hiring, engagement support, and separation for all district staff. The HR function at CFISD is primarily provided by our central office Human Resources team. The CFISD Human Resources Office Department's mission is to collaboratively serve our community by providing the best employees for our students. In addition to our central office Human Resources team, the Berry Center, Community Programs, Nutrition Services, Operations, and Transportation departments receive support from Human Resources staff that are located directly within their department. Together, the Central Office Human Resources and the Human Resources ancillary teams serve over 18,000 employees, including substitutes and temporaries, within Cypress-Fairbanks ISD. Once an employee is hired, Human Resources is responsible for the federal and state hiring requirements for all employee types. We track all of our teachers to ensure they have the appropriate certifications for the areas in which they teach. We also track our appraisers to make sure they have the necessary training to evaluate our certified staff. Our employment process for campus paraeducators includes proficiency testing. Human Resources administers a proficiency test as a means to assess a certain level of knowledge for all of our campus paraeducators. Another aspect of the employment process, and another way that we serve our Cy-Fair community, is through the criminal history background process. In 2018-2019, Human Resources conducted over 12,000 criminal history checks on new hires, substitutes, temporaries, volunteers, and contractors. Badging services is also a function of Human Resources. When an employee, volunteer, or contractor passes the background process, they are eligible for an ID badge. For many of our campuses and departments, their employee badge serves as access to our buildings. In 2018-2019, our central office badging department printed 9,500 new, lost, or damaged badges. Employment processing also includes compensation administration. An employee's initial salary calculation, stipend determination, promotion, pay increase, and corresponding data entry is all done within Human Resources. Human Resources also maintains the official electronic personnel file. When an employee leaves the district, Human Resources is responsible for the online resignation and the final paperwork required to remove an employee from our system. While our department is widely known for recruiting and employment processing, one way that we collaboratively serve our employees with sensitive issues is through our employee relations support. We assist employees who have a physical or mental impairment that may need a reasonable accommodation to be successful in their positions, as well as we meet the district's legal provisions for the 1,300 employees who qualify for family medical or temporary disability leave each year. We also work collaboratively with staff development to support our instructional evaluation system, CF-TEST. Human Resources also provides the district's response to federal and state agencies such as unemployment, Department of Labor, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Other areas of campus and department support from Human Resources include safety-sensitive Department of Transportation and reasonable suspicion drug and alcohol testing. Another significant way that we support our campuses and departments is with a unique investigation partnership between Human Resources and the CFISD Police Department. Through this unique collaboration, CFPD and HR investigated allegations of high-risk misconduct, as well as presented at 3 statewide conferences this past year. In addition to the investigation support, Human Resources, in partnership with the cinema team and staff development, has created compliance video training called Crossing the Lines and Crossing the Lines 2. This all-staff mandatory training requirement establishes behavior expectations for staff when interacting with students. Another area of focus for Human Resources is increased proficiency. Another area of focus for Human Resources is increased process efficiency. With the support of technology, business and finance, and support services, we implemented on-site fingerprinting for applicants and automated the application, hiring workflow, new hire paperwork, authorization to work, and the online badge renewal process, all of which decreased the time to hire for our campuses and departments or eliminated the need for employees to drive to central office to replace their badges. I will conclude the presentation with a quick reminder that we are now hiring teachers and aides for our full-day pre-K program that starts in January. Here is a shout out from our pre-K students who are excited about full-day pre-K. So if you know someone, we have students looking for their teacher.
Will be my teacher.
So at your seat is a Hooray for Pre-K hashtag. We have 50 full-day pre-K programs starting in January. Please feel free to take pictures with your hashtag as you visit these campuses.
Hooray for pre-K! That was between friends.
Outstanding report, gosh. Any questions or comments of Ms. Franklin or Dr. Stewart? Yes, you do.
Ms. Franklin, do you have an idea of how many of our Cypher ISD students who have graduated from our high schools come back later to teach? Do we have any way of tracking that?
So I thought I heard a number from Roy at one point, so I'm going to defer to Roy.
I can't tell you about every student, but we do have a program called Ready, Set, Teach, or Education and Training, and we currently have 91 students that have gone through that program, went to college, got their degree, teaching certification, and now teaching in CFISD.
I know we have a lot more than that teaching in our district, because I see people that my kids graduated from high school with, and my boys are in their 40s, and I see them as I visit different schools. So I know we do have probably a pretty significant number of students that over the years have come back to our district to teach.
You're absolutely correct. At the new staff orientation, we asked that question, and there's, it seems like a couple of hundred hands that go up as people that are coming home to our district. I think Roy was speaking about the ones that went through the program. Yeah.
Yes, Tom.
For a change, I have no question, but merely a thank you. So this report is certainly responsive to some of the questions that I've asked in the past, and I just want to say I appreciate the getting the answer back, particularly on the trend analysis. So thank you.
Just today I was making some campus visits, and one of the points that was brought up from the principals was how difficult it was to find substitutes now. And I understand that is a real challenge for us at this point in time. Are we looking at anything for recruiting substitutes? What are we doing there?
So, very good question, and you're absolutely correct. There are some challenges, especially when the economy swings a different way. Then the other side for that is that we do see a decrease in substitutes. One of the things that we are doing and we've identified is there's some businesses, local businesses that are laying off in the community, and we're creating flyers to place there, and we're going to talk to those businesses to connect with them to let their employees know that we have substitutes that are available. That's one thing that we're doing. We also have brought in someone to help source more applications and get those substitutes through the pipeline. So we have identified that issue as well. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. You all gave us a very comprehensive look at your work, and it's gosh, I can't imagine all the things that you all have to do, but we have an outstanding workforce, and thank you for keeping us rolling.
All right.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We'll now go to the public hearing portion of our agenda. 6A, the board will hold a public hearing this evening to review and solicit public comment on the targeted improvement plans of Bain Elementary and Frincone Elementary. We'll have a brief presentation.
Dr. Ogletree, I'm sorry. I will begin the presentation and then turn it over to Dr. Claiborne. An added component of the 2018-19 State Accountability System is that campuses who earned an overall D rating or a D in any domain must implement a targeted improvement plan. And so we have two campuses that we're going to visit with you about this evening. Bain Elementary in the 18-19 State Accountability System earned an overall D rating, and Frincone Elementary earned a D in the Student Achievement domain and the Closing Gaps domain. So based on these ratings, as I said, the state requires these two campuses to work with the campus intervention team and to complete and implement a targeted improvement plan. And another requirement is that the plan must then be discussed in a public hearing, and that you as a board of trustees must vote to approve these plans. So tonight, Dr. Claiborne will discuss the process that the Texas Education Agency requires campuses to use in developing a targeted improvement plan. And then our two campus principals will discuss the contents of their individual plans. So Dr. Claiborne?
The Texas Education Agency develops the Effective Schools Framework, also known as the ESF, to provide a clear vision for what districts and schools across the state do to ensure an excellent education for all students. The ESF provides the basis for school diagnostics and for aligning resources and support to the needs of each school. TEA describes the Effective Schools Framework through 5 what they call levers: effective instruction, effective, well-supported teachers, high-quality curriculum, positive schools culture, strong school leadership, and careful planning. Using the Effective Schools Framework as a foundation, the Texas Education Agency prescribes 3 separate tools that must be used for a campus needs assessment and planning process. These include a data reflection tool used to analyze 2018-19 STAR data and accountability ratings, a self-assessment tool used to determine the campus status in regard to each of the 5 ESF prioritized levers, and a district commitments theory of action tool used to determine how the district will support the campuses. Throughout the month of October, the campus leadership team used each of these tools to determine the prioritized focus areas for each campus. Upon completion of the needs assessment and planning process, the targeted improvement plans were written focusing on adult behaviors. The targeted improvement plans for both Bain and Francone were included in the board packet. Additionally, these were posted on the district website under the About Us tab and the school ratings page. The targeted improvement plans consist of a desired annual outcome followed by 3 90-day cycles. For each 90-day cycle, the campus has set milestones, also known as strategies, which will enable them to accomplish the 90-day outcome. Each of the milestones also includes a timeline, resources needed, persons responsible, evidence used to determine progress, and an evidence collection date. Additionally, each campus is required to set student-level academic performance goals at the meets performance level in 3 separate cycles. Before you now is a sample of the goal table from one of the targeted improvement plans. The Cycle 1 review will include checkpoint data and will be held at the end of November. The Cycle 2 review will include district progress monitor data and will be held in mid-January. The Cycle 3 review will include benchmark data and will be held at the beginning of April. Upon receipt of the STAR data in June, we will complete the summative evaluation, also at the meets grade level standard. Once the targeted improvement plans were developed, Bain held a public meeting on October 22nd, and Francone held a public meeting on October 29th to review the 2018-19 STAR data and the targeted improvement plans. Feedback was collected from parents and community members. Tonight, the board is holding the required public hearing and then voting on the plans during the Monday night meeting. Implementation of the targeted improvement plan milestones is ongoing, and prescribed monitoring of these milestones must occur 3 times a year. During the monitoring process, the campus will reflect on their plans based on the following questions. Did you achieve the 90-day outcome? Why or why not? Did you achieve the student performance goals? Why or why not? And what adjustments need to be made for the next 90-day cycle? We will be monitoring in November, January, and April. While these are not exactly 90-day cycles, we believe this is the best timeline for monitoring while enabling us to make updates to the plans if needed. Now, Dr. Carrie Mars, the principal of Bain Elementary, will share her campus's 2019-20 accountability ratings targets and the 2 prioritized focus areas of her targeted improvement plan.
Good evening. For the 2019-20 school year, Bain Elementary has the following targets related to state accountability ratings: an overall rating of 84, a student achievement domain rating of 76, a school progress domain rating of 85, and a closing the gaps domain rating of 80. Our first prioritized focus area is the objective-driven daily lesson plans with formative assessments. Our desired annual outcome is as follows. Extended planning is part of the school culture. Detailed lesson plans demonstrate that teachers are thoughtful and purposeful in their instruction to impact student progress. Lesson plans show ideal student responses, which we call formalized exemplars, to ensure that assessments measure active student engagement and learning. The first desired 90-day outcome is that weekly grade-level collaborative planning sessions will result in completion of lesson plans 2 weeks prior to their implementation target date. The second desired 90-day outcome is that lesson plans are consistently detailed across all grade levels. The third desired 90-day outcome is that teams of teachers identify and include in lesson plans ideal student responses, formalized exemplars, to questions in formative assessments. Our second prioritized focus area is data-driven instruction. Our desired annual outcome is as follows. Teachers have become more proficient at reviewing and analyzing data to identify areas for improvement. Continued training and support are needed in developing and implementing instructional plans that address data-identified needs. The first desired 90-day outcome is that the data are used to drive instructional planning. The second desired 90-day outcome is that teachers plan and implement with fidelity effective first-time instruction based on a data analysis. The third desired outcome is that teachers use data to plan for and implement targeted remediation. The district is providing us with several layers of support. First, content area coaches come out on a daily basis to plan with our teachers. Dr. Tanya Goree, the Assistant Superintendent of School Improvement and Transformation, and Christina Cole, the Assistant Superintendent of School Leadership, are both attending our weekly leadership team meeting. And we are part of the CFISD school monitor process, through which we receive a wide range of support in various instructional areas. Now Melissa Martin, the principal of Franconia Elementary, will share her campus's 2019-20 accountability ratings targets and the two prioritized focus areas of their targeted improvement plan.
Good evening. For the 2019-2020 school year, Franconia Elementary has the following targets related to the state accountability ratings: an overall rating of 85, a student achievement domain rating of 80, a school progress domain rating of 88, and a closing the gaps domain rating of 78. Our first prioritized focus area is curriculum and assessments aligned to the TEKS with a year-long scope and sequence. Our desired annual outcome is as follows. All lessons evidence solid understanding of the TEKS and STAR readiness and supporting standards. Outside resources are aligned with district curriculum and state assessments. The first desired 90-day outcome is that all outside resources are vetted by the instructional leadership team, either during planning or before their implementation. The second desired 90-day outcome is that teachers thoroughly understand the TEKS and STAR readiness and supporting standards and can self-identify aligned outside resources. The third desired 90-day outcome is that all classroom walkthroughs show evidence and use of rigorous and aligned resources, whether they be district or outside. Our second prioritized focus area is objective-driven daily lesson plans with formative assessments. Our desired annual outcome is as follows. Modeling during collaborative planning is standard practice. All classroom instruction, including reteaching, aligns with the discussions and modeling that occur during collaborative planning. Formative assessments are consistently utilized to identify student need. The first desired 90-day outcome is that all collaborative planning sessions include time designated for modeling of first-time instruction and reteaching. The second desired 90-day outcome is that instructional capacity and use of targeted formative assessments increase as a result of the modeling during collaborative planning. The third desired 90-day outcome is that all classroom walkthroughs show that the planned instruction, including reteaching, is being implemented with fidelity. The district is also providing us with layers of support. First, content area coaches come out on a weekly basis to plan with our teachers, and we are a part of the CFISD monitor school process, through which we also receive a wide range of support in various instructional areas. That concludes our presentation for this evening. At this time, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, board members, Dorothy?
I really don't have a question. I have a comment. I was able to, as part of just our board regular visits, to visit Bain last week. And I actually got to see a planning session with an instructional specialist, all the teachers in that grade group, and the principal there. And it was really a very eye-opening experience for me. I want to thank Dr. Mars and her team for welcoming me, and I want to thank them for their hard work. It's really apparent to me that everyone in Cy-Fair is behind supporting as much as they can, and that we are going to get the goals that we want.
Tom?
First, let me say thank you for being here tonight. This is very excellent plan that has been assembled. I have been to both campuses, and I'm very pleased with the campuses. Pardon me a second. Not necessarily. Maybe that was a sign I shouldn't be asking any questions, right? Perhaps you'll pass the microphone to somebody else and come back.
All right. Yes, Julie?
Thank you very much for the information. It was very, very informative. One thing I noticed when I was reading through the information that was provided in our board packet, there was one section that talked about barriers. And I know we want to focus so much on bringing resources and things that the district can bring to support the process, but I want to make sure we're also removing those barriers, or if there's anything that we can do, can we take something off the plate so there's so much more focus being put on achieving these goals. I hope that we're also looking at taking some things off. I know the teachers are working so hard and support staff, and we appreciate all that effort. I hope that we're also looking for ways we can lighten their load as they're continuing this focus.
Julie, one of the things that these two principals do quite well is celebrations. So although we shared the scores, there are a lot of celebrations for both of these campuses. And so they have done a beautiful job of celebrating that and talking to their campuses about that as we move forward to improve the scores.
I just want to say thank you very much. We're very proud of you, and we have no doubt that you're going to be successful and meet your goals.
I appreciate the report, and I know it has to be stressful to come up here and have to talk about your schools as if they're failing, which they are not. And so I'm going to direct this to Dr. Macias, because she and I know that I have a real bone of contention with the STAR test. So, Dr. Macias, whenever we're talking about that good old third grade reading test, and that reading test is 2 to 3 levels above what third graders are, did we look at both of these schools and see if that would have changed their grades if they were tested on the grade level that they were supposed to be on?
Mr. Colby, we didn't look specifically at these two schools, but we have looked at all the schools as a whole, and there are thousands of kids. There are thousands of students in CFISD whose Lexile level is far above what their actual grade was.
Well, that was my feeling too. I just, it makes me very upset with the legislatures and with the TEA that they're pushing a test on kids that are way above the level that they should be tested on in the first place. I had another question, but it's fleeted my mind. That one was burning, so I had to ask that. So I'll turn it over to somebody else for just a minute.
I'd just like to say I'm really glad that we have the type of district that will make sure that whatever the rating is that we're not satisfied with, that we will get on it, and make sure that both of these schools, which are fine schools, will get the right grade. I think the key is what was said at the opening of the presentation. This is what these targeted improvement plans are directed at adult behavior. And my question is, all of that you presented to us, it really sounds good. How convinced are you, Ms. Martz and Ms. Morton, that your team of instructors are committed to doing this? Because I think all these plans are good, but the attitude, the atmosphere for change and improvement is so important. So how do you feel about your team?
So one of the things that we did when we reconvened after summer was to share what our goal was and to really rally behind that vision. And all of our teachers can say it, and they know it, and they track it after every checkpoint. And in addition to that, we have put incremental goals in place so that we are watching as the year progresses to make sure that we are all invested in growing in the same direction.
I can truthfully say that I am blessed to have one of the most dedicated staff groups in the state, in the country. In fact, a few of them came here tonight to support me. But they're in it to win it. They want our kids to be successful, and they can all recite that we want 75, 45, 25 at the end of this year.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's good. You all make up, you're part of our family, so we're behind you. We're behind everything that Dr. Macias and Ms. Claiborne, Dr. Claiborne are doing, so we wish you well.
I think I'm ready now. So these questions are really directed more to Dr. Macias and Dr. Claiborne. First, I have reviewed the TIP for both campuses. I've also reviewed the CIP as well, and as I indicated, I have visited both of these campuses several times, and I'm very pleased with the campuses. First, and this relates to our targets, and it's a standard question of mine, is to realistic attainment. What is the quantitative comparison? By this, what I mean is, what is our anticipated starting point compared to our target point? And I'll go ahead and set up a straw man. We might say that students are different each and every year and a comparison cannot be made, but we do have to make a comparison. We have to make some assumption to say, this is where we believe we are at the beginning of the year, and we know we have to reach this point. But I look at it a little differently. We have a point to reach to satisfy the state, and I also understand the algorithms change every year, so there's difficulties with answering that question. And then we have the target goal that the district has set, which is in all likelihood higher than that goal that the state has set. So the question that I'm asking and trying to obtain a quantitative answer to, and I know it's difficult, is how realistic is our goal to hit each of those two areas? And so I'll let you all answer it how you wish.
We feel like the goals that the campuses have set are very realistic. They've reviewed all of their data, they've worked with their teachers and their teams, and they really believe that the goals that they've set that they shared with you tonight, that they can meet them. So for instance, for Bain, they had a prior year score of a 69, which was a D. And in order to get to a C, which is where we would want a campus to be, C or higher, however the board goal is for all campuses to be at 80 or higher, then the campus would need to make 1 point of growth. However, our target score for Bain, and as we're working toward meeting the board goals, is an 84. So that's what Bain's working toward this year. So that's a difference of 15 points from where they were last year. And then in regard to Francogne, their areas of need are based on their individual domain areas. So their student achievement domain, their prior score was a 69. And in order to get that to a rating of a C, where we would at least want a C or higher, the campus would need, again, 1 point. Their target score for domain 1 is an 80. And to get to that 80, they would need to come up 11 points. And then finally, for the closing the gaps domain, the second area where Bain had a D, they had a 66, Francogne had a D, they had a 66. To get to a rating of a C, they would need to come up to 4 points. However, they are shooting for higher than just a 70, which is that entry-level C. They're shooting for a 78 target score, so that would be up 12 points from where they were last year. So again, high targets, but we feel they're achievable, and the campus is working toward meeting these.
So let me ask, the initial question I asked a little bit differently. Clearly, both campuses were on the cusp, and I remember sitting in the audience, I guess, 9 or 10 years ago, when we had one of our middle schools in the area of science where we lost 3 teachers in one school year, and we had 3 subs, none of whom were certified in science, and predictably enough, the science scores plummeted. No surprise. So I understand when you're on the cusp, it easily could have gone one way or the other, and it could have been as small as 1 or 2 students scoring differently on a test. How often do we see 11 and 15-point gains?
An 11 and 15-point gain is a big jump, but based on all the support that we're providing Bain and Francone and their willingness to make these jumps, we feel like they're attainable for them for this year.
Have we been able to see jumps of this magnitude on any of our other campuses?
The answer to that is yes. We do have campuses that make large gains, even 20% and 21% in different areas from one year to the next. And as Dr. Claiborne shared, and it's without the intensive support that is being provided for Bain and Francone.
Thank you. And of course, the underlying question for which I asked that if we set unrealistic goals, then we create untenable pressure. And as a trustee, not only is it our job to make certain that the goals are appropriate, but also that they are in fact attainable, because we are in fact in the people business. And I've often been faulted for never asking that underlying question, so I'll break tradition and from time to time ask the bottom layer question as well. Overall, talk a little bit more about the additional resources that we're committing to each of the 2 campuses, and let me prompt that with another question as to the amount of student mobility that we have at each of these campuses. Having visited the campuses, we're in a corner, and in that corner, our mobility is not necessarily within Cy-Fair, where we have consistent curriculum, but our mobility is often shared with sister districts that often do not have the same approach as Cy-Fair and often may not have the same curriculum. So it's a different type of mobility than we might see for a campus that's in the heart of Cy-Fair. So the underlying question is obvious that I'm asking is, with that mobility, do we also pair additional resources? So I'll back off and let you all answer those 2 twin questions.
Mr. Jackson, I'm going to invite Dr. Tanya Goree to come up and help me with that answer because, well, she is our Assistant Superintendent for School Improvement and Transformation, and she is working intensely with these 2 schools. And while she comes up, I do want to answer your second question regarding the mobility. And I can share with you that when we look at mobility, we typically use the taper report for that, but the taper report is always a year behind. And so what we did this year, and you're right, the mobility is high. For example, the last taper report showed 28% mobility for Francone. And so we did target the students who are at Francone and at Bain and that are coming from another district. And they are getting intensive reading support through a new position that we created. And Dr. Goree can talk more about that.
Mr. Jackson, through my position, I am afforded the opportunity to work very closely with both campuses. The position that Dr. Macias is speaking of is a reading transition specialist. And the reading transition specialist is an interventionist that's assigned to both campuses, and that person supports closing the gaps, closing the achievement gap for students who are in mobility. Those students are performing at least 2 years below in reading, and they work very closely with this interventionist, and this is a position that's specifically assigned to both of those campuses. In addition to that, both principals receive individualized coaching through our weekly visits together. The campuses also are a part of the monitor school process, and that involves district leaders conducting focused campus visits, providing feedback and suggestions for academic improvement. Those visits happen once a month. There's also support for the instructional specialists to build their capacity and the assistant principals. So there's coaching for everyone on the leadership team to help build their capacity and support them in their goal toward earning the score that they desire. Both campuses, as I said, have the reading transition specialists, and they also participate in regular and consistent long-range planning. This long-range planning is an opportunity for teachers to plan together outside of the school day, and it helps to develop their capacity and understanding of the curriculum so that they may implement it with more fidelity. But that's what both campuses receive. In addition to that, Bain participates in a Star Catcher Academy. 4 days a week, the students receive an additional hour and a half of intensive reading intervention. This is provided in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade through the teachers. Their day is extended 4 days a week, and it has we have data to show that the additional intervention has provided the students an opportunity to move levels at a rapid pace. It started September 16th, and it will continue through the end of the school year. Francone has what they call, we have Camp Summit for the school district. Francone will do a Camp Francone, a summer school program this summer for incoming 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to work on closing the gaps for those students as well. So those are the supports that both campuses have that are different from anything else that's provided at our other campuses.
And should we not attain the milestones that we anticipate, do we have the capacity within the district to supply additional resources? I understand the primary focus is to increase capacity, but it takes time to build capacity. And if we do not hit the milestones that we think we should be hitting, do we have additional resources that we can commit?
Mr. Jackson, absolutely. We have resources in people, and we have resources in materials and other intervention supports that we have already committed to these two schools, and we're ready to commit further if we need to. I believe you heard both of these principals talk about monitoring their progress. And so we're monitoring that progress here at the district level, and as we are evaluating the checkpoints and the different assessments that we're doing, we are evaluating what other support systems need to be put in place.
Thank you. This question is directed for Francone. Francone had our pilot pre-K program, and I had the privilege of going to Francone and conducting an interview about our pre-K program at Francone. That was kicked off in 2014 and 2015. And I know I saw the data as it came out because that was part of my statewide presentation on the efficacy of pre-K, and it was also set up as a model for other districts to look at. So with the pilot being in pre-K of 2014-15, that would say our 3rd graders now started in that program, and I haven't taken a look at the data. Has our pre-K program at Francone continued to deliver the promise up to 3rd grade? The reason why I picked 3rd grade is because we know that many pre-K programs, the benefit dissipates by 2nd or 3rd grade. Mm-hmm. And so are we seeing that breakdown at Francone, which has led to our non-attainment of the levels that we would like to see, or are the benefits of pre-K still holding up?
Mr. Jackson, you're correct. That first cohort of full-day pre-Kers were 3rd grade in the 18-19 school year. And I will share with you that is not the grade level that was of concern to us, and they performed well.
Well, that's exceptional news because we're really basing, as I understand it, our rollout of full-day pre-K on the pilot that we had at Francone.
That is correct.
And that's kind of exciting information that the benefits have not disappeared, because that's been largely the criticism nationally, is that the benefits of pre-K are gone by the second grade. I do have another overarching concern. Whenever we have a situation like this, tremendous pressure is placed upon the principals of the individual campuses, and I'm not certain that's where the pressure needs to be placed. Clearly, the pressure resides with us as trustees doing our job, but I would like for senior management to address the situation of how are we providing a degree of protection for the campus level management.
Mr. Jackson, certainly there is an urgency at both of these campuses because we're talking about our students and our students being successful. But I can share with you that these two leaders know that the scores that we spoke about, I am responsible for those scores. I'm charged by from Dr. Henry for the curriculum and instruction accountability for this district, and I take responsibility for them. But I want to add to that I believe they know and they will agree that we're a team, and that we're working together as a team for our students.
Good. That was in fact the answer I was looking for, because part of the culture of this district is that we are all in this together from all levels, and it's important that as we go through the process that we do not rupture that culture, because once the culture has been broken, it takes tremendous effort to try and rebuild it. So I'm glad to hear that answer. We chatted about student mobility. I remain concerned about it, but it sounds as if you address it. That was brought home when I visited Holbrook on pre-K to discover that our vaunted pre-K program there, the year I visited, of the 80 students that went through it, there were only 3 of them who were there in 5th grade. All the others had moved away to other schools. So mobility has a tremendous impact, and I appreciate your addressing the mobility teaching requirements of those students who circle back in, who did not start in Cy-Fair, who are not circling around from Cy-Fair. What about teacher mobility?
Mr. Jackson, we don't have information on teacher mobility. We can look into it and see if we can get a report here in the district, but from the state, we don't have that information.
I would like to hear back on that. I don't need to hear about it before Monday, but that is obviously a concern. The situation of that middle school clearly identified, when you lose key teachers just in one area, all of a sudden you have difficulties that were not planned for. And certainly where these campuses are located, they are not easy to drive to, and you need to have teachers who look forward to working in campuses that are full of opportunities. And when you throw in difficult driving as well as opportunities, you may generate mobility concerns. And so I would like to see if we have those concerns and if we are in fact addressing those. But as I said, don't need to see it by Monday. Okay. Those were the questions I had. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to answer all of those questions. And principals, thank you all for being here. This can't be a fun and comfortable time for y'all, but as I said, we're all in this together. So thank you.
All right, Julie.
I thought of another question, or something that just popped in my mind. In addition to district personnel, what about parents, parent engagement? Are there any efforts being put into involving the parents in this process? That's one question, and then I have another one after that.
Both of these campuses are supported with additional Title I funds, and so they're able to allocate a portion of those funds for parent involvement.
Okay.
And so they're constantly working on getting parents involved, having nights when the kids can come up. For instance, the nights where they had their public hearing, Bain had a big science night that the parents and the kids were up there and we had the hearing. And then Francone had a fall engagement of literacy and reading and working on computers for the parents to come up and be engaged with their students. So they're always looking for those opportunities to get parents involved.
That's great. That's super. I think that's a big part of the equation, is ensuring that the parents are also engaged in the process and feeling that pride in their schools and involved in their children's education. My second question is also, are there any additional wraparound services or additional resources we can offer in terms of food service or, anything else we can do to provide resources to these campuses? Evening meals?
We, both of
Breakfast.
these campuses, yours is to the Feed the Community?
Mine is CEP, but not
CEP, okay, but yours is Feed the Community. Okay, so at Bain, we have the Feed the Community program where they do have access to breakfast, lunch, and actually with the extended day that Dr. Goree talked about, they also receive dinner. So, and then there's counseling support services, both of these as well.
And when Bain had their family night, parents and kids were up at the campus eating, getting the food from food services, and just enjoying that time together as a family, so.
Bob? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
A question for Dr. Macias. As they have these different 90-day milestones, will you be reporting back to the board where they are in the process as they hit these 90 days with their goals?
If that is a report that the board wishes, we can certainly do that.
I think it would be good for us to follow. Absolutely. And I too echo, these are both great campuses, and I so appreciate the district resources and all our principals and leadership and teachers are doing at that staff to make sure our kids have what they need.
The one that slipped my mind a while ago. Carrie, oh, there you are, Carrie. This is kind of directed at you because in my visits to Bain, one of the things that I had realized and were shared was that some of our neighboring charter schools would release their students to come in because they knew they weren't going to be passing tests at the charter schools, so they would find a way to get rid of them and send them back to public schools. And I know that was having an adverse effect on some of the test results. Can you tell me kind of what we're doing with that?
Well, the charter school that's in my attendance zone is Yes Prep, and they currently just taking 6th grade and up. The only problem I've had with them is they try to recruit the 5th graders.
All right, Tom.
And this question is for Dr. Macias. Is there any concern that the state may move schools that have a D rating into the improvement required category?
Right now, a D rating in the state accountability system is considered performance that needs improvement. So there may be a little misnomer about improvement required and needs improvement. In our prior accountability system, campuses were either met standard or improvement required. So that's a little bit different in the A through F system, whereas a D rating is not a failing rating. It needs improvement. So the commissioner is currently proposing to have any campus who has a D rating for a second year, consecutive year, to have the same type of interventions applied to their campus as a campus that would have a failing rating. However, they're not really a failing campus. So the legislature has asked the commissioner to put that rule-making process on hold. They actually had a House Public Ed meeting about it last week, and the commissioner spoke before that committee, and they said they wanted him to put that on hold so that he could work with districts to come up with a more reasonable solution for a campus that has a D for 2 consecutive years instead of applying the sanctions, if you will, that an F-rated campus would have.
So, Mr. Jackson, we're not sure what's going to happen with that. What we do know is that these two principals, these two leaders have quality plans in place, and we have every confidence that you're going to see growth from these two schools.
Thank you ever so much, and I'm confident that we're going to see the growth as well, but I also wanted to, for us to understand and the viewing audience to understand that there's a political movement that is involved in this as well, that is completely independent of education. So thank you.
Yes, Dr.
Just one comment. Although we're talking about two of our campuses here, they're not the only campuses that the district monitors. There can be campuses that have a B rating or even an A rating that we have that we monitor. Anytime the district sees a trend downward, before that gets too low, we try to make sure that turns back up. And you know, every year scores do go up and down, but we address it when we see some issues occurring, and just like we are here, we're providing additional support and additional service to these ladies and their campuses, and I have every confidence in these two ladies and the people at the campus level, and then our district support team that we're going to be where we want to be come May.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. We'll now go to the consensus action items of our agenda. 8A, the board will consider approving the tax refunds of $500 or greater for Cyfair ISD. Any questions? All right. 8B, the board will consider approving the minutes of the October 7, 2019 regular board meeting. Any questions? All right, we'll move to the non-consensus action items. 9A, the board will consider approving the district's 2019 comprehensive annual financial report and single audit report, and accept the auditor's report on the district's general purpose financial statements and single audit for fiscal year ending June 30, 2019.
Thank you, Dr. Ogletree. You should have in front of you a copy of this presentation, as well as a copy of the comprehensive annual financial report and then the single audit report. The Texas Education Agency requires that the Texas Education Code and the Texas Education Agency require that the school districts have an annual financial audit, as well as the Single Audit Act requires that we have a compliance audit of our federal funds. The district prepares the comprehensive annual financial report in its entirety. And before I go any further, I would like to recognize some people that were very instrumental in preparing this report. Connie Morgan-Roth is the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Financial Services. Mabel Isles is the Director of Financial Services. And then Melissa McAnear is the Director of Business Services. Will y'all please stand and be recognized? Thank you. Them and their staff work very hard all year on this, not only on this report, but throughout the year. And the district continues to receive the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the preparation of our comprehensive annual financial report. I'd also like to thank Austin Dunson for, he designed the cover of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and also some help from communications. And with us tonight is Ms. Deborah Kirkham Young and Greg Peterson from Weaver and Tidwell, and they will be here to go over the audit report in just a few moments. Thank you. The statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance for the general fund as of June 30th, 2019 reflects total revenues of $992 million and total expenditures of $917.8 million for an excess of revenues over expenditures of $68.3 million. As a reminder, the district was allowed to, by statute, to increase the M&O tax rate in the year after a disaster. So this particular comprehensive annual financial report reflects those additional 2 pennies that were in the general fund. And then the INS tax rate was reduced by 2 pennies because we wanted to see a stable tax rate. So the $8.7 million that you saw transferred out from the general fund, that went into the debt service fund to help offset the reduction in revenues because of receiving the 2 less pennies. Some highlights associated with the general fund financial statements are, as I mentioned, an increase in fund balance of $68.3 million. This was a result of some one-time Hurricane Harvey funding that the district received, as well as this one-time increase we were allowed to do of the additional 2 pennies to the M&O tax rate. The total of these 2 items resulted in about 65 additional million to the general fund balance. The fund balance reflects about 6 months in expenditures. The total fund balance is $518.7 million. And I always like to highlight how general fund expenditures remain low at about 1.8% of total expenditures, and this is less than the state average of 3%. In addition, we maintain a low administrative cost ratio, and that ratio for the financials ended June 30th was 3.74%. Now I would like to turn it over to Ms. Deborah Kirkham, and she is going to go over the auditor's opinion and the audit report for both the comprehensive annual financial report and the single audit report.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Board, for the opportunity tonight to present to you the auditor's results. On page 11 of the comprehensive annual financial report, is the opinion. Weaver's opinion on those basic financial statements is a clean, unmodified opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that you can receive that your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Our audit was conducted in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, as well as government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States of America. The summary of auditor's results for the federal single audit report, again, the opinion on the compliance for the major program was also unmodified, a clean opinion, and the federal program we tested this year was a special education cluster. And you can see that on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards as the CFDA numbers 84027 and 173 combined. And now I'd be glad to open it up for questions.
All right, any questions? Okay, Tom.
And I'll go ahead and list the questions, and either one of the 2 of y'all can answer as you see fit. 1, what are the significant accruals? Please discuss. As it relates to the defined benefit pension plan, what is the approximate contribution expressed as a percentage of total payments toward the pension plan by employees? What is the discount rate and the assumed rate of return used for pension liability? And has that rate increased or decreased? Remind us who sets that assumption. Then as it relates to TRS care, what is the approximate contribution expressed as a percentage of total payments toward TRS care by the employee?
The significant accruals that we have, well, first of all, in the government-wide financial statements, it's the pension accrual, the OPEB accrual, which is the TRS care, and then the accrual for accrued interest. And then on the fund financial statements, we have a revenue accrual for state aid, as well as expenditure accruals for payroll and then construction. And then let's see here, I think your next question was, what is the approximate contribution expressed as percent of total payments for the employees? If you go to page 61 of your comprehensive annual financial report, you'll see that members contribute 7.7% towards the TRS pension, as well as the member contributions are about 49% of the total contributions for the year, and this amounts to about $3,832 per employee. The next question you asked is, what is the discount rate and assumed rate of return for the pension liability? And the discount rate is 6.907%. And you can actually see that on page 63 of your comprehensive annual financial report. And the assumed rate of return is 7.25. You asked if this was an increase or decrease, and this is a decrease from June 30, 2018. These assumptions are actuarially determined, and TRS hires actuaries that actually look at this information. The last time they actually did an actuarial report where they looked at this in detail for the pension plan was in 2014, and then they recently did one in 2018, which is the reason why you see this decrease. And then for TRS care, if that is on page, I believe on page 67, where you can see that information, and that rate is 0.65% that the employee contributes, which is about 24.5% of the total contributions for the year, and that amounts to about $323 per employee.
So to repeat, you said on TRS care, the employees contribute about a quarter
Correct. Towards that, yes, sir.
of the total contributions required. And the liabilities associated with these obligations do in fact show on our balance sheet, is that correct?
Well, they are on the government-wide financial statements, not on the governmental fund financial statements. So if you go to the government-wide financial statements, which is actually the very first one, you will see the pension liability as well as the OPEB liability.
From a audit perspective, did we take a look at the internal controls of the district? And if we did so, did we find any deficiencies? Or did you have any management letter comments that you wish to bring to our attention?
I'm going to let Debbie answer that question.
Yes, looking at internal controls is a key part of our audit plan in determining the controls that are in place and the risk as a part of our risk assessment process. And always, with a school district, you're looking at the various control activities from the various different control processes, from payroll to purchasing and accounts payable and cash management, investment management. So all of those different areas, we perform what we call walkthroughs and have an understanding of what the control processes are and what control activities, what monitoring processes, the information and communication and the reporting of all those particular activities. And then based on that, we perform our risk assessment and determine the testing and what audit procedures we're going to perform on each of those areas.
Thank you. If you would, let's go back and talk in a little more detail. You mentioned that you took a look at a program. Do we alternate the programs that we look at from year to year? How do you select the program to look at? What type of review is done?
There may be some, but pretty much all of the major programs are going to be looked at if they're material to the financial statements. So HR, payroll, purchasing, accounts payable, those particular ones, cash managements, capital outlays, all of those areas are significant to the financial statements. And so they're all going to be looked at each year. Standards do allow you sometimes to rely on prior year, but based on the district size, we believe it's important to look at each of those areas each year. Now, in regards to internal controls for financial statement reporting is completely different than the controls for the federal programs. So when we look over at the federal programs, there is some alternating there, so you are correct, and that's because of the different programs. And the different programs we audit have different compliance requirements that are direct and material to those particular programs. And the new compliance supplement and the uniform guidance this year went and laid out what they call the 6 or the 6 to 7, what are the key controls that auditors should look at. And you have to look at those like in special ed cluster. Pretty much you're going to look at activities allowed, allowable costs, cash management reporting, and depending if you have, a lot of times in special ed cluster, you can have a lot of contractual assessments, so if those things are material to that program, then you're going to do a test of the bidding of those particular items. But we perform a risk assessment on those particular things and do the same thing that we do on financial statements, is we identify what those control activities are, do walkthroughs on the programs. We'll perform testing, and generally on the activities allowed and allowable cost is the payroll cost and the actual disbursements charged to those federal programs.
Excellent answer. Very thorough, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Go ahead.
Just one comment. I certainly thank you, Debbie, and Karen and her team have done a great job. But you know, really, our excellent financial status goes deeper than just the business team.
Mm-hmm.
It's the principals out here. It's all of our assistant superintendents, district leaders, and our classroom teachers, all of our ancillary staff. Really, everyone takes great pride in trying to function as efficiently as possible. And you know, I would just commend all the employees here at Cy-Fair ISD for helping our great fiscal responsibility to be where it is. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you, and our
Thank
thanks
you.
to Karen and all of her staff, because we ask for a lot of stuff. We send planning memos ahead of time, and Mabel and all of these ladies, they're uploading all of that information into the portal, getting us the information prior to us arriving here. So it's a pleasure to work with people that strive for excellence in financial reporting.
Can I say one more thing? Yes. I'm sorry, just one more thing, and it's not really related to this, but some of you are aware that we're in the process right now. We feel like that the current House Bill 3 is kind of depriving Cy-Fair ISD of some growth money that we should be receiving. And just to give you an example, Cy-Fair ISD has grown 1,600 students in the last 3 years, and we do not qualify for the fast growth allotment, but yet a school district, very small school district, grew 3 students, 3. And they're getting the fast growth allotment. So that's something that we're working with the commissioner, we're working with other school districts. Klein and Fort Bend fall into that same category, and one of the, it was unintended legislative, it's not what the legislature meant to happen, and we're trying, and they're trying to help us, the legislature is, with the commissioner, because the commissioner has some authority there, and that for the districts that I mentioned, that's $97 million that we don't get all 97, but we get the lion's share of that because of our size. So that's something that we're continuing to work on, and although our financial statements look great, as Karen said, a lot of that was the one-time money that we received, but I know the last 2 or 3 years we've come to you in April and May and proposed a deficit budget, but I hope everyone sees that we're very conservative, and through the year, all 2 or is it 3 years, Karen? I can't remember.
It's this, the one that was just adopted is the third deficit budget.
Third
for
deficit budget we've
1920.
adopted, but we've never actually finished with the deficit budget. So just want to point that out, and then to point out some of the things that we're doing with House Bill 3 to try to improve our financial condition moving forward.
It's those unintended consequences that
Yeah,
come.
that's right.
Thanks again for the report. We will continue to be proud of the way we handle our taxpayers' money and what we get from the state. You're doing an excellent job. Thank you. 9B, the board will consider approving the budget amendments for the period of July 1 through September 30th, 2019. Any questions, or can we move this? Oh, by the way, we moved 9A to consensus. Can we do that? And 9B, can we move that to consensus? All right. 9C, the board will consider awarding bids, contracts, and/or authorizing purchase orders as recommended in the posted agenda item. And they are: 1, assorted food and nutrition services, fall 2019, college readiness and career interest tests. There also restaurant catering and delivery services, and spirit apparel and promotional items. Any questions on that? Yes, Julie.
Dr. Macias? For the college career or college readiness test, part of that is the ACT, part of it's also the Aspire. When does through HB3, when does the state start to reimburse us for that ACT test? Not this year, right? Would it be next?
It is this year.
Oh, it is this year. So they'll reimburse us at the end of this? Karen, I'm sorry.
will know the answer.
We have already received some upfront money where they kind of estimate it based, they actually get the information from these testing groups, and they've estimated it and given us some upfront money. But then what will happen is at year end, they'll actually do a settle up, and so part of it, we might get more, or we might have some taken away.
Okay, based upon the number of students that we have that took the ACT just recently.
The number that are eligible, because you can only do one student in their junior or senior year, so they can't, like, if they took it junior and senior year, they don't get, we don't get reimbursed for both.
But we offer it to all of our juniors
That's
in
right.
October.
At 11th grade, they all take it. The ACT, the 10th graders take the Aspire.
Right.
And the Aspire is not part of this. So the
I saw
Aspire
that.
is not reimbursed. So in this number that you see, about 800,000 is the ACT.
Gotcha. And they take, the juniors take that, is that in February? I said October, that was the Aspire. That's in February, isn't it?
November, in the spring?
I think it's in February. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, can we, Debbie?
Dr. Ogletree, I would just like to point out that I have a conflict of interest on one of the items on item 1. My son is an executive VP for one of the companies for Jake's Finer Foods. So I would ask that we not place it on the consent agenda, since I will have to abstain from voting on it.
All right, all right. All right, that will remain. We'll go to item 9D. The board will consider approving construction proposals and contracts paid from bond funds to the recommended contractor, and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts as follows: the 2019 Hopper Salyers Smith Middle School renovations, 2019 renovations to Falcon Annex facilities, maintenance and operations, 2019 Telge Ag Eldridge Ag Science Resource Center and Exhibit Center. Any questions, or can we move this to consensus? All right. 9E, the board will consider approving the granting of a water line easement and temporary construction easement to the North Harris County Regional Water Authority located on the north and east property lines of Blau Middle School, and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Any questions of Mr. Sprague? Can we move this to consensus? 9F, the board will consider approving the targeted improvement plans for Bain Elementary and Francone Elementary, and we'll keep that on, do that Monday. Yeah, let's leave that on Monday. 9G. 9G. The board will consider approving the campus and district performance objectives for the 2019-20 to 20 campus district improvement plans, and we'll keep that on for Monday. And our superintendent's briefing will be on Monday. I think we have concluded tonight, so we are adjourned.